Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond Bitcoin, our monthly series where we break down the latest trends in cutting-edge technology, blockchain, and beyond, and why it matters to you. I'm Layla Gulen. I'm co-hosting on behalf of BSN Global. Joining me is ShareRing's Communications Manager, Timothy Kingery. Good to see everyone today.
Thank you, Layla. And with us this evening is Jawad Ashraf, CTO and co-founder of Terra Virtua. And joining us as well is Amrita Sethi, the first NFT artist from Dubai. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks.
Starting off, can you tell us just a little about yourselves and what drove you to work with NFTs in this industry?
I think I'll start because the story started first with me. So basically, my background is I've been building technology companies pretty much all my life. And I've been really interested in disruptive technology, something that's going to sort of like change the world. And so I moved into mobile and web before it sort of came out. And what was fascinating to me was the whole concept of digital assets, because where we came from was records and going to the movies and owning everything. And basically we moved to sucking everything through a straw, Spotify, Netflix, etc. And I was interested in how that could be turned into something more permanent. And NFTs were the solution to that. So back in 2018, we got the team together. My co-founder, Gary Brace, and I put together Terra Virtua to create a proper full ecosystem for these digital assets that you could own, gift, and were permanent. And along that journey, normally it's a huge monologue, but along that journey, before the platform went live, I was introduced to Amrita and did a brain dump of what crypto and NFTs are, at which point she went away and came up with a whole concept around NFTs. Before that, in her own right, she was very successful in terms of making this incredible artwork. So that's where I came from, and then I'll segue into Amrita.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. And I mean, I echo what Jawad said, that if I hadn't met him, I wouldn't have kind of come across NFTs. So my story is a little bit of a different one. I didn't come from an artist background. I've always been in the finance sector. I'm an ex-banker. And then a couple of years ago, I decided to, I'd say I was always in the corporate world as well. So I actually left the corporate world to go into the financial sector as an entrepreneur. And in between that time, I actually literally found my voice and connected to a creative side that I had when I was younger. So I actually became an artist, and I became a physical artist, right? So this was before I understood what NFTs were. But the nature of my art and what I created is I've created a style called voice note art. And that style, which interplays sound, technology, and art, didn't lend itself really to a physical form. So I was always trying to interplay, technology into it. And then it was only because of COVID that, forced me to kind of go online, which is where I found Jawad. And he was just like, this is made for NFTs. And I was like, what's an NFT? And he's like, let me tell you. And then that's how our relationship and friendship was born. I became the first NFT artist on his platform, but also the first NFT artist in Dubai because it was so ahead of the game.
Yeah, I'm curious how you would explain what an NFT is to someone else who's a layperson in the space. I'm curious.
Oh, I love doing that. The best way to describe it is, you are able to buy a movie and own it. You were able to buy a song and own it, and then once the DVD was yours, or the movie or the song was yours, it was an asset that you could now take, listen to, use, but you could sell, you could trade. It was collectible. You could gift it as a legacy to your grandchildren. Now, when we moved to digital, everything, all the brands didn't really know how to move those properties to digital. And what ended up happening was you had Spotify, Netflix, Amazon for reading, for music, and for movies, where you don't own anything. It's all sucking down a straw. And even when you have them on, let's say, the Apple Store and whatever, you're relying on an ecosystem. Now, what an NFT does, it's bringing the old back to the new. You own it. It's digital, and it's independent of any company in the world. It's yours. So if you get this movie, you now own this movie. It's digital, but its ownership record and certification is all on the internet, and it's permanent and can never be changed. So from your point of view, NFTs are the old coming back to digital, and you can now take it, you can resell it, you can transfer it, and it's physically yours. So it's now an asset that you can do anything with. But the Brucey bonus on this, the nice thing that you can have, is that creators generally never benefit from the resale of the item. If you've got like an artist who's made something wonderful, there's a reason a lot of artists historically have never been able to make a lot of money in their lifetime. It's different now, but like they never get advantage of the secondary revenues. And with NFTs, it's built into the contract that let's say you buy a piece of artwork from Amrita, and it's, let's say, $20,000 or $100,000. And then when it resells for $5 million later, a small percentage goes back to Amrita. So the creator always gets paid. And it's on that basis that we in Terra Virtua were able to sign up like Paramount, Legendary Pictures, Godfather was officially with us, and all these movies, because the studios now saw an opportunity where there was no longer a grey market. So that's as in the most layman's terms I can put it. But like generally, the problem with crypto is there's almost a cult behind it. And so people talk about crypto as Bitcoin and currency and all of this, and the NFTs are for celebrities and all of this, but it's just taking an asset and giving it back to you, and you can now have it independently of any company, and you can give it to your grandkids, just like you could with your record collection. That's what it is.
And just while we're on the subject of it, so how do you prevent something like this from getting pirated?
Because the way that you need to look at it is, okay, so let's just say that you have a DVD. You have it and you own it, it's in your hand. When you've got the piece of music, let's say, or an NFT or a card, it has actually got your ownership certificate linked forever with the item. Okay? So that item is like is always yours, and it's an official item. Just like you had DVD bootlegs at car boot sales where people can give you a copy and you can go down the street and they've got it in a suitcase, that is pirating. You can always buy it. People can always pirate their music, but it's not worth anything. You just can listen to it, but it's not worth anything to pass on or trade. Right. And this, when you own it, it's the same piece of digital music that you can download for free, but it's just like a DVD in that you own it, and it has as much value. So you can always pirate a movie. You can always pirate a piece of music or copy something, but it's the difference between having a piece of artwork on your wall and it's a print, which is one of 50 and it has value, or taking a photocopy and putting it on your wall.
So what else is special about NFTs? Aside from, the ownership aspect and, proving the scarcity, the royalties aspect is of course, a novel feature, definitely needed. But what else can people do with these NFTs? They seem to be pretty flexible in regards to what they're capable of.
They are, but one of the key things about NFTs is about permanence. So generally, when you buy an NFT, the data and everything associated with it is fixed. Because otherwise, what ends up happening, if that data wasn't fixed and secure, imagine if you have the record and somebody could just swap the soundtrack for you. These things are locked pretty much. There are other types of NFTs you can do more with. It's more about the properties of an NFT. You can do things in digital that you can't do in physical. So if you take Amrita's work, for example, when she's got a piece like she has behind her, that was one of the pieces that sold on our platform, What the NFT. So this one sold for over $130,000. But the physical piece, there was a static piece, and then there was a fully 3D animated piece. And that's the thing that, I talked about DVDs and movies, but NFTs allows you to do far more interesting things in the digital medium that you could ever have in the physical. So for Terra Virtua, for example, one of the things that we did, we had the licensing for Godzilla vs. Kong, which is a movie that came out recently. And we, rather than imagine you buy an action figure. Here you could actually have a 3D model which is built from the movie CGI footage, and it's fully animated. And you can view it on your mobile phone, and you could view it in AR or VR or on 3D, and you have the whole effect. So it allows more types of mediums to be expressed that would be otherwise. That's another one of the really nice things about it. So it has economic properties, but it also has real qualities in terms of the visual and audio that you'd never get with a physical item.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that I would obviously add to that from an artist perspective is obviously, yes, definitely in terms of the royalties. I think that's always really amazing. But but also I think you can get a lot more clever with things, right? So, even putting rewards in, whether it's, reward to have access to maybe see the artist, or if somebody comes down, or lunch, or, all these kind of events that, say, an artist can hold, or galleries or exhibitions. But also, you can also do things like, when you've got, sorry, I've just kind of left, but yeah, so I think the idea is that later on as well, it's this interplay between the physical good, artwork, as well as
that's true, actually.
NFT.
It's physical twinning.
So
So
what I'm kind of looking at myself is to say, like, as with the NFT, because you can create unlockable content, and a lot of the NFTs is to either give the person the ability to own the physical item, or unlock a reward, like to see the artist, or there's other things that you can play, and then even starting to look at charities or working with different brands. I was talking to another artist, and they were doing an amazing cause, and I was like thinking, well, why don't you think about, instead of you kind of just giving the charity, why don't you get the charity to create their own wallet, so that you can also see the proof of money going directly to that, so your fan base can feel that that money is actually going directly to the right charity. So there's a lot of things that we can do that we weren't able to do in the physical world, but now we can do in the digital world.
And I'm just going to add to that, there's one thing that I missed. One thing that NFTs present is opportunity. Because, like, if you look at some of the artwork that we've got on our platform, for example, and is around, you've got people who are making artwork that never had a voice before, could never actually take it out. We have people who are in favelas in Brazil, young ladies who are making incredible artwork that are being bought by people in Iceland and Korea, who couldn't even take it out the door, let alone exhibit in a gallery. So you're providing a way for artists to be heard and to be seen. And there's a lot of ladies and a lot of people who are producing art, which is remarkable, that never sees the light today. You'd never see it. And that's another thing that's empowered by the likes of NFTs, because before they would have created a piece of artwork, but why bother? You can't sell it, you can't earn anything from it. And now there's an industry around this. I mean, even if you look at things like games, like play to earn is a big thing at the moment. And there's like a game which is very popular called Axie Infinity. And that is actually allowing people to earn revenue from playing a game. And it's actually bringing a whole underclass out of absolute poverty and providing them food on the table every month. That's just down to this revolution.
And Amrita, I'm curious, as one of the first NFT artists, and kind of going back to what Jawad was saying about creating static pieces. So what do you create, and how would you describe your art?
Yeah, thank you so much. So the way I actually call my art voice note art. And it's actually based on a sound wave. So first what I do is I capture the word. So for example, behind me, you can see this was a play on me, everybody, this kind of, how NFTs were kind of boosted into the mainstream with what happened with the Beeple sale early on this year. And everyone kept saying, like, what is an NFT? What is an NFT? So I literally took the word, it's a play on the words, like what the NFT. And so I captured the shape and structure of me saying what the NFT. And then each of the lines of the sound wave, I draw to match the meaning of the word. So I can do it, for example, for phrases like that. I can see, you can, like, for cities, I've got Dubai there, I've got New York there. And you can see the structure of the sound waves change. And then the lines represent the meaning. So it's a form of, like, I would say it's like a modern day storytelling. I could even do it for you, for example, Layla. I could sit down and I can interview you, and I can ask you about your life and where you've come from, what are your passions, what images make you. And it's all based on this premise of, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. I kind of flipped on its head, and a word is worth 1,000 pictures. So again, let's go back to yourself, is that when somebody thinks of Layla, certain images are going to come up for me, but 10 more of certain images. So your experience of people. So it talks about, like, it's like a modern day portrait, really. It's a dynamic portrait where you can storytell. And so obviously when I first created it, I have, there's a process that goes behind it. I capture the dynamic shape and sound wave. I draw the images. But when you have a static piece, which is behind me, how does that, until I explain it to you, you would just be like, okay, what is that? So first I introduced the QR code, which you can see over there. So if you play the QR code, it then says the word, and then you can see it, like you hear the sound that made the original voice note. Then when I discovered NFTs, I was like, well, I don't need to do this whole drama of QR code, playing back the sound, describing it. I literally just created an animation. So this is where I created some of my first animations on Terra Virtua, which were the 2D animation, which literally told the story, but you visually. And then I created 3D animations where I said, it's no longer just, because you see art, what NFTs have done for art is it's taken it away from a pure visual static experience to a dynamic experience, right? And so, first of all, just the 2D animation already connects you with the artwork. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to take the user off the page and literally into the art, and you flow like sound into the art, which is where then the 3D animation came in. And then it starts to become an immersive experience. And then, which we've not discussed yet, it's about then how do you consume that? How do you experience that? So you can do it through, like, obviously on your screen, you can put a TV frame up and then you can watch it. But recently I did an immersive experience in, there's a place called the Theatre of Digital Art, which you would literally have wall-to-wall screens around. I think maybe you have them in other parts of the world. And we did an immersive experience where I put the people inside the artwork. And so you're this big and then the artwork's that big. And then all of a sudden people are like, wow, not only do I feel that I understand the value of the NFT, but I also appreciate that now to experience art becomes a whole different question in itself.
Well, your art is just beautiful.
Thank you very much.
And I love your philosophy. You can turn a word into 1,000 pictures. It's such a profound thought.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
Yeah, and that really really redefines immersive experience, right? Standing in the art, that's a really awesome concept. And I like what you said, Jawad, about the the inclusivity benefits. Really, bringing more artists, into the space. Giving them this platform to display their art and to sell it to more people, for it to reach more people, and really inspire more people, and give them a way to compete in the world stage. I mean, that's what blockchain's all about,
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's really incredible.
And we've done really nice. We've done like Twitch streams where we've got all of the artists there, and we're walking around a virtual gallery and having them talk about each piece. And it's really nice. And you have these stories. We had one, some with disabilities or some with challenges, and they've been really making their own art. And you hear the backstory. So we try to do more than just put it up there. And ultimately, it's all perception. So right now, when people are about NFT, they think about $62 million pieces, celebrities, footballs, and playing cards. But actually, we're just at the beginning of the journey. This is a big paradigm shift. Like right now, relevance. I mean, like when my oldest daughter was walking around with a Jessie doll, my youngest one wanted an iPad. It's all digital. And that's the way society is moving. And there's got to be more than just a transition from physical to digital. You've got to enrich what you're doing in this medium.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that brings up my next question. So what's going on with these apes and rocks selling for millions of dollars? I mean, this has to be some kind of anomaly.
Well, you know what I'll say about crypto is that, and this is a very non-crypto centric view. Basically, you see art, and art does very well. When you've got top artists, those works, they have value to the audience. I mean, Damien Hirst pickled a cow and sold it for over $1 million. I mean, seriously. That's why I never go to the Tate Modern. I just don't understand what's going on there. But ultimately, art is really in the eye of the beholder. And with these items, what you're finding is that people are buying them as investments because they're seeing these as a level of artwork, as something which is inspirational for them. Now, honestly, I see a pickled cow, I don't get it. And when I see an ape being sold, I don't get it. But what I'll say is that one thing you traditionally find in crypto, and this is very interesting, that he says, that people have made a lot of money in crypto over the years. There have been crypto cycles that have gone up and down and up and down. And so what you've ended up happening, you've got multiple multi-millionaires sitting with literally hundreds of millions of dollars of ETH and Bitcoin in their wallets with no ability or method to take it out into the real world. So what ends up happening is that when these things come out, for them, it's great, it's worth this much ETH. But they're disconnected from the standard monetary system. But when we look at it from the outside, we're thinking, oh my God, it's this much money. But actually, it's this much ETH. And to them, the ETH has less perceptual value because ultimately they have so much of it. And that's a problem with crypto. A lot of projects are one project moving money into another, and it's a closed ecosystem where often you can't get the money out. Because look at the banking restrictions, look at the exchange restrictions, AML things, you've got no regulation. And until there's a regulatory framework, it's going to be difficult for people. And that's why you're getting these sort of almost bizarre things. But then the other thing I will say, it's art is in the eye of the beholder. I genuinely don't understand a lot of it. But I know what I like. You know, like I'm a massive Marvel fan, and I've had graffiti spray painted on my walls. That is insane to a lot of people. But it's what you like.
Right. I think I would add a little bit, add an additional viewpoint to what Jawad has just said. It's just that for me, I mean, with CryptoPunks, with Bored Apes, with even the Rocks, they are providing, they're a little bit more, and I get it that some people like, yes, the aesthetic appeal you don't get, but you have to look at it from a real kind of paradigm shift, I would say, within the artists. It's like a new movement. So just like before you had, the Impressionists, you have, the Surrealists. So this is really a movement of a different art form. And I think if you look at it from a perspective of, as an artist, what is one of our restrictions is that we will spend hours on a piece and maybe you can only create X amount of pieces a year. So one of the things that an artist is always limited to is scale. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then the problem is, as an artist, is the only way to scale things previously was to create limited edition prints. Okay, so then those limited edition prints, okay, fine, but then they really fall in value. So what happens with things like Bored Apes and CryptoPunks and whatever is you're tapping into three really important things that only technology would have been able to give it to us. It's giving us rarity, scarcity, and scale all at the same time. Mm. So by taking these generative art projects where you then create Bored Apes, you then can create something where you feel part of the collection, but you still own your unique item that reflects you. You're able to have the bragging rights to say that you got in early. And then also from a financial perspective for the artist, again, let's take the old school model where I've gone and worked on a painting for maybe 2 years or a year. And I don't want to now just sell that artwork for $10. I want to sell it for $500,000 or $1 million. Now I need to find a collector for $1 million. Now, all of a sudden, what the artist can do is they'll say, we'll break it down to small pieces, sell it at sort of $300-$400 each. And that then gets me the same amount. I still am rewarded. I give my fans and my audience and my collectors a little bit of who I am and part of the collection, but it also gives and then it kind of gets into this trading and collectability. So then all of a sudden you're able to trade at secondary market and then boom. And that's why things like CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, the Stones, the Rocks, these are really, it's like the first Picassos that were made. It then started a movement, right? Yeah. And so I think now, of course, now you're getting a bored pig, a crazy hyena, that, and there's still quite a lot of animals still left to go. So everybody is trying to get them more like crazy little things. And so then people say, well, then I only want to buy a Bored ape or whatever the case is. But the reason why these, why then the subsequent, models of these are now still doing well is because, first of all, it's created a movement. And I think this is what people have to appreciate, that you have to see it with a different paradigm shift. You have to see it with a different view, and that art has become different. But yeah.
And also, one thing to add to that is, Amrita mentioned generative pieces. So what that means is that if you look at the Bored Apes, there are lots of them. Okay? Now, an artist is not individually creating each one. It would take, if Amrita was to create those, it would take forever. So generative pieces basically are where the artist creates multiple components, and then an algorithm will combine them to make a unique piece. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like the artist has provided the building blocks and it's generated permutations. Everyone is unique. It's still an expression of the artwork, but there's tech behind the creation of the art as well. So that's a generative art piece.
And in fact, how I got to know Jawad is I was actually creating my own algorithm pre-NFTs when I didn't know about it, because I can take my sound wave with those elements and I can make it into infinite amount of words, which is pretty cool.
Amrita, you obviously have a talent here. It'd be the same thing as if someone went to see a Picasso hanging in a museum and thought, you know what, I could do that. I'm going to try to paint something that's abstract or whatever. Do you fear that you're going to have a flood of people who think they're artists, who think they can create NFT art, flooding the marketplace?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, absolutely. And in fact, if anything, I think, I would say welcome, and I think the reason why I would say welcome is because I find this sometimes the traditional art market, it's gone, it's just like, how Bitcoin has taken you from a centralized money system to a decentralized money system.
Right.
It's the same thing with the art world. What NFT does is taken it from a centralized system where I'm quite, unapologetically saying that there are certain, collectors, curators over the centuries who have created their circle ring of trust, and they've got their gate and they've gated the community to the art community. And unless you really hit X, Y, and Z, or you've gone to this art school, or you've done this, or you put a brushstroke like this, or you pickle a cow, or whatever the case is, only then are you welcome into the club. And so what I would say is that, it kind of democratizes people's actual what they want. And so that is why you have the top old school curators on this planet literally scratching their head, looking like a bored ape and going, what is happening with the bored apes?
Right.
So, it's just a different perspective.
Right. That is true. Jawad, you said you had mentioned sports earlier. So I'm just curious if sports athletes, teams making use of NFTs is going to be the next big thing in collectibles and memorabilia.
Yeah, definitely. And you're already seeing that. I mean, there have been some companies that were doing sports cards. There are some companies that we work with that are doing them. There's a lot of celebrities and like whole federations that are getting onto the bandwagon. It's going to be really down to people have been collecting trading cards since the 1900s, 1920s they were doing it, and so people always love to collect. And one of the things that I really like to say, everyone is a fan of something. Mm-hmm. And they have a connection with something over time. And that's really what collectibles are all about. And with sports especially, it resonates with a lot of people. So you're going to see a lot of really interesting things coming out from different sports federations, from celebrities. And they're going to take on different shapes. They're going to get more mature. Like right now, there have been cards which will be based on video moments. But now there are cards that can even reflect in real time the score of a particular game. But one of the things that we're looking at, for example, is that post-COVID attendances to events, etc., have gone down. And now, you see the likes of when a movie comes out or there's an event, NFTs are going to play a part in this. So imagine if when there's a live event, so this is coming out in Terra Virtuous. You can have like a mobile application which is live over the period of the event, and not only are you able to watch it, but there's merch that's dropped to you for 24 hours while the event's on. You can take selfies and pictures that are then associated with the NFT. So imagine you pick up an NFT 10 years from now, touch it, and all the photos of you with your kids just pop up at the same time. Because why do you buy something as a collectible? It's to trigger a memory. You go to a pop concert, you buy the t-shirt. You wouldn't do that if you were walking to a department store. It's you want to tie an object with a memory. Mm-hmm. And that's really what you'll see happening with sports, but you also see it with everything else. Watch parties, online participation, online events, pop-ups that happen. Like there might be a Yeezy pop-up and it's happening in New York for like 1 hour in this road. Now you'll actually have it happening digitally. So while this is happening, something will happen digitally. So it's all part of the evolution, and brands are figuring this out, and sports brands are just one of the areas, and it can be tied to experiences. For example, there was a Muhammad Ali NFT, and like the person who won it was contacted by the Muhammad Ali Foundation to go and visit family. So there's all sorts of things that you can do, and a lot of these things are geared towards charity as well. So there's some very interesting new things that are going to surface in sports and celebrity as well.
Very interesting.
Very cool. So what other sort of trends do you see, this NFT craze disrupting in the art and collectibles world? I could see this, especially getting into sports cards and trading cards, maybe fantasy sports. Is there anything else that's, getting disrupted right now? I understand we're pretty early in this.
Okay, so things I would say that, look, NFTs right now are linked to things generally. But an NFT is a digital representation of ownership. Imagine access to YouTubers' accounts. Imagine access to property. Imagine fractional ownership of real items. Imagine if there's, for example, a supercar and it's broken down into NFTs, which basically are ownership certificates, which give you entitlement. You're going to see a lot of different types of digital use cases that are going to be linked to NFTs, because an NFT is a digital representation of ownership. And right now it's only been linked to physical goods and digital goods, but there's IP ownership. Imagine, for example, if you're a songwriter, okay, and a company just come out recently, which is a Kickstart for crypto called Pollinate, for example. And what they do is that they allow the artist to crowdfund their next piece. They allow a musician to crowdfund their next album, for example. And once they have that, imagine if you're a songwriter and you can crowdfund making that piece. It means you can quit your day job. You can crowdfund that piece. And the people who have crowdfunded it, you could potentially give them ownership from revenues they will make in royalties from their work. You're going to see a ton of disruption. And so in movies, in filmmaking, in all types of instruments that are out there, but the challenge is always going to be to marry them with regulation, because there are very strict categories that this is a security, this is a utility. And when these products come out, they will need to play ball within the arena, and regulation will need to change and evolve as well to allow all of these things to occur. I mean, there's so many possibilities. It's really endless.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Curious if you have any favorite NFTs in your collection?
Well, in my case, it's Amrita's work. That's pretty much.
Yes, of course.
But different people in our team in Terra Virtua, we've got a lot of people. My personals are always artwork. I just love getting traditional artwork, but animated artwork. I've got some wonderful pieces by different artists. But like some people on our team are like huge collectors of things like apes and all the various trends and axes. And one guy on our team literally has over 2,000 different NFTs, or 10,000 NFTs in his collection. Yeah, I couldn't do that.
And I think this is it. I think, over time is just, once you've got like this amazing NFT collection, it's the same thing with having a physical, big physical collection. So, you have these big collectors in the physical world who have these amazing collections. The question is, how can they then, it's almost the other way around. What can they now do to leverage and, take like their physical collection, make it as NFTs and maybe unlock some value there as well that they never were able, to do. But I think for me, it's like also once people get these big NFT collections, and if I put my ex-banking hat on, all of a sudden, these NFTs or art becomes like an asset class, right? And so I know because, my husband is from Switzerland. We go back. I'm back from I used to work in a Swiss private bank, and really one of the kind of key things to any asset class is just being able to prove authenticity to it, to have some kind of like structure and provenance to it, and then from there that asset class can then be used as leverage. So I mean, it also and then you can unlock certain value. So if you're a charity, you want to unlock value to even add value to that, or you're a company, or an individual as well. There's so many ways, and I think people are only beginning to really understand it. But the issue that I think the industry has at the moment is that people are still trying to understand the machinations of what an NFT is. When you just have to I don't know how a car works, but I drive a car. I don't know how an aeroplane works, but I go on an aeroplane, right? And I think that people are getting so consumed by the word non-fungible token. They're getting so confused by why a CryptoPunk is selling for 2 million that they're not looking beyond then this and then going, what is really the capability? Why is an entire community so excited about this? Because I think what we need to do is we need to start putting the technology and the blockchain into the background so that we can showcase how and where it becomes useful and what problems it solves to people, because that's all what people care about, right?
And to follow up on that, and this is a question for both of you, do you foresee anytime soon sort of this concept, this idea getting implemented in the education system, that younger people are growing up better understanding what this is all about? Because it seems like right now it's mainly adults, collectors, people who can afford to kind of enter into the space. But is this something that you foresee anytime soon?
I don't see education. I don't see education being part of it. I see as it's up to the companies that work with NFTs to make it a frictionless experience. When you do an in-app purchase, you don't care how the technology works. You just make an in-app purchase. It's got to be as natural as that. So people shouldn't have to be trained in it. It should just be. Right now, it's crypto websites. It's difficult to get into them. You need wallets and all of this. What we do in Terra Virtua, for example, is because we're a mass market. Our focus is mass market. Go on with a credit card. Register. It creates the wallet for you. Or you can connect a wallet. It just does everything for you. You can pick one out and pay with your credit card. That's what it should be. So you don't need to understand the technology. The technology should be obfuscated. You shouldn't need to know about it. But right now, in crypto, people tend to talk a lot about crypto, which no one cares. That's generally the thing. No one cares how it works. Just want it to work. And if you look at the internet, for example, think how many years it was out for, so many years. And somebody thought, I'm going to slap a nice, pretty picture on it and allow it to have graphics. And then all of a sudden, everyone started using it. Make it easy to use, and then everyone will use it. And then they shouldn't have to explain it.
So, and later to answer your question as well, is that, when you say, if I go to any of my friends' houses, I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to talk to you. Let me speak to your 6-year-old. And I can have a proficient conversation with the 6-year-old, but with the older person, I'm still they're going, but isn't it still a JPEG? So I think, to answer your question, I don't even think you're going to need to teach kids this because they're in it, they're already there. I think where the training needs to happen is anyone really over 25 maybe.
That's interesting.
Because that's where you need, because it's a different paradigm shift, but like it's almost like this is now already, I think, the norm with youngsters. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is my feeling.
Yeah.
I'm already too old for
program computers better than adults sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to my next question. Is just how easy is this for the average consumer to enjoy or the average artist to participate in, and what type of obstacles must be overcome before this becomes a popular choice in art and collectibles media. Jawad, you actually answered some of that. You guys have a way where it creates the wallet for them, so they don't need to set that up, deal with copying and pasting or learning what an ETH address is. Paying with credit card, that seems to be a great step in the right direction. But what else needs to happen before we reach that tipping point where this is the norm or this is the preferred choice?
I think the companies just to get more mature and just basically deal with a mass market audience better. Because for anything to really work, you have to really address the needs of that. Whereas a lot of it is, there's a lot of difficulty for the average user to actually understand what crypto is, create a MetaMask wallet and connect. You are getting a lot of people joining it. Because remember what Amrita was saying about the ages, that complexity, when I say mass market, it's like literally anyone over 20. Because it's harder for people to get their heads around when they're used to certain behaviors. But for anyone younger, this is incredibly natural. And it's very, very easy for them. If you said it's hard to get into, they'll just look at it and scratch their head and go, what's so hard about it? But then this whole thing, for all these older demographics, nicer things need to happen, like easier on-ramps, better curation. And then I think you're going to see marketplaces sort of fragmenting into like eBays and galleries. And then I also think you start seeing more collections from galleries being available in VR all around the world. Right now, you're going to see a piece of art in a gallery. But once it gets more mature, you're going to see all of that moving around. And that's only going to be enabled when those institutions embrace this. And so it's not just about the mass market, it's about institutions which have got this particular sort of grasp on them, letting go and embracing it. So that's going to be one of the challenges as well. You have to change your mindset. Like Amrita said, we've done talks and presentations, and lots of gallery owners in the past have been sitting there scratching their head saying, but what is it? I don't get it. So this is education, I think. And then they will change their minds and change their openness to this whole medium. And every time there's something new, it's often viewed as a threat, and that's the problem. When paradigms shift, powers shift, and when things become decentralized, which this is all about, you're taking power away from the core to the many. And a lot of people don't like that, and it's difficult because it hits a bottom line.
Yeah, and I would also even add to that, even the many don't like that, because a lot of people they like the fact that that things are being handed to them, it's easy, it's whatever the case is. And also people are slow to change, right? People get comfortable. And that's okay also. But what I would say is how many times, it's like online shopping. There was a process. It was time. Even today, there are plenty of people who are completely educated on it. They know how to online shop, but they'll still prefer to go down to the shop. So it will become part and parcel of a choice that one can make in their life, and it then will start to just become the key thing is at least everybody should just know how to do it. Then they can choose to decide if they want to do it.
Mm-hmm. And this sort of segues really quite well into the next question that I had, and that was, how do you see this technology maturing and NFTs being used in the next, let's say, 3, 5, 10 years?
It's also touched upon it a little bit earlier, which was, I think you're going to see more and more use cases of it. You're going to see it go more mainstream. For the things that you're seeing now will become more mainstream and accessible because this is the first wave. Then you're going to see the second wave, which is connected to more sophisticated forms of NFTs, which are things to do with ownership linked to physical items. Like you're going to see even things like IP. You're going to see access to profiles. You'll see new ways to monetize for influencers and celebrities. You're going to see all of those things coming in. Mm-hmm. Because right now, just if you take the average influencer, they're sort of at the mercy of the platform that they're streaming on. But NFTs would allow them to present their content in a new way where they can get paid for their work. And so there's a lot of maturity for different cases we haven't even seen. And being in the space, we can see many of these are very nascent and they're growing. But right now, phase one will be everything that we see now will be easy. And then you see more creativity. Then phase two will be lots of interesting edge cases and then more connection with the real world. And Rita, how do you see it?
Yeah, I see it as, I completely agree with what you're saying, and it's more just to add, because there's just so many things to add about where the future is. So I would say the first thing is, at the moment, because big brands are also they're a bit confused, they're also going to whatever the case is. I think they themselves, it's going to become, just like as part of their marketing strategy, it'll just become one more vertical that they would need to know how to use within their company.
Exactly.
It's just going to be, it'll be seamless. It'll just be like, oh, you have a social media channel, you have a, Twitter thing. Oh, of course, you'll have your NFTs, and what is your NFT strategy, right? So I think that's like the kind of way in which we're going to be integrating in our lives. It will just be so seamless. And then I would say the second thing is that welcome to the metaverse, right? So let's just, if you haven't got your avatar, I'm getting mine ready. It'll be released soon. And, I'm going to be looking at my avatar. I want my avatar to look as good as I look in real life. I want to be going out, walking the streets of Somnium Space and Decentraland. And I want to go and buy myself a pretty cool looking jacket that I don't want to wear in the real life, because maybe I got a different style in the metaverse, right? So I think we are, I think this is it. And I think people's minds are being blown, because people are going, oh my God, did you see, I bought not real pair of sneakers in the metaverse. People can't even get their mind in, but actually, why not? And so I think we're going to see NFTs are going to be like, oh, NFT. To forget, it's going to be
NFTs will exist in the metaverse. Yeah.
NFT to then, oh my God, let's get into the metaverse. And I think that's really, for me, where the next step is. There, I don't know.
Actually, that's probably the most important change you're going to see. Everyone's building metaverses, even we are. And the whole thing about having some utility. Imagine if you bought. Okay, so take for example. Imagine if you bought an NFT of a sports car. You could take it into their metaverse, and then you could race it in a sports game. And if you lost the game, you lose your car. Imagine all sorts of things like that are going to happen. These things that you buy all of a sudden will have a whole world of their own.
But imagine this world where today we see a guy in a Ferrari, we're like, oh, that guy's made it. Now imagine you're in the metaverse. He looks like a Bored Ape. He's driving, really funny car that, and he's wearing a Coca-Cola bomber jacket, and everyone's like, oh my God, that guy knows what he's doing. And all it is that he's got his CryptoPunk on the side of his car, and that's it. And that would be what success means. And so our vision of also what's coming is, I think it's magical, it's fantastical. And I do think sometimes that is quite scary as well. So we've also got to give it the credit to which, that some people will say, that's just too much, Amrita. Let's now just connect to the physical thing, because that's too crazy. So there's a balance.
Well, this has been amazing, just a wealth of knowledge, fascinating, mind-opening stuff. We'll definitely be looking forward to seeing what the exciting future holds for NFTs in the art space. I want to thank you all so much for sharing your insight with us. I'm afraid we're out of time right now, but I know that we'd love to do this again. And for our viewers who are interested in learning more about what you do and just various topics that we've covered, where do you recommend that they go? Jawad, let's start with you.
Just generally Google about NFTs, but if you want to know more about our platform, go to www.terravirtua.io.
Wonderful. And Amrita, you've been featured in all of the major media networks and publications, but anybody who would like to learn more information about your artwork, where should they go?
So my website is artbyamrita.com. You can find me on Twitter, artbyamrita. On LinkedIn, my name is Amrita Sethi, or even if you do Art by Amrita, you'll find me. And on Instagram, it's art.by.amrita. So roughly around that.
Wonderful.
Excellent. And we'll be adding links to all those in the description of the video below. Once again, thank you both for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing how you continue to transform the art and collectibles industry with NFTs. Thank you.
Thank you.